All right, guys. So Twitch streamer Asmongold made some comments the other day that went mega super duper viral because you'll see how loathsome they are, and it caught many people's eyes. So after this, him and Hassan Piker had like nearly a 3-hour conversation where Hassan desperately tries to talk him off the ledge of his insane take. And by the end of it, he tweeted, basically apologized and was like, I went too far, right? And he made a point of saying, like, I never apologize for anything. So the fact that I'm apologizing now means I genuinely think I may have gone too far, right? So I believe what's happened is Twitch has banned him for 14 days. And so he'll be back in 14 days, but this comment was viewed as so extreme that it merited a 14-day ban. Now, Twitch, to my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section below, but I'm pretty sure Twitch is, generally speaking, a lot more strict than YouTube is. On YouTube, you can kind of get away with saying more stuff than you can on Twitch. They've kind of strongly enforced their terms of service for a while. I think Destiny was banned from Twitch, and Vosh may have been banned from Twitch too. And didn't they do a ban because one of them said cracker? But anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, he made this comment. It went mega viral. I reacted to it on Twitter, but let's listen now, and then I'll react some more. Here we go.
If you want to consider a genocide as a systematic killing of a group of people, they have genocide built into Sharia law right now. So no, I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people. It's not even a question. It's crazy that people don't see it that way. They'd be doing the same thing. And how much did they kill? As many as they can. They're not able to kill as many people as Israel because they don't have as many bombs and as many weapons. But if they did, they'd be doing the same thing. That's it. Just takes enough. That's right. These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways. It is that simple. No, I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care.
Wow. So my reaction in real time, as I said on Twitter, I'm kind of shocked by the casual, nonchalant dehumanization that's baked into that worldview, right? Maybe he doesn't know that 90% or more of the people who've been killed in Gaza are innocent civilians. If I'm being kind, I'd say maybe he doesn't know that, right? But if you don't know that, how about you go to Shut the Fuck Upsville and only talk about things you have some knowledge about, right? Or, look, he could know it, and he still doesn't care. So the first thing that popped in my mind is dude, what if this was you or a member of your family that was being wantonly and brazenly murdered because you live on the wrong patch of dirt? And some people who are not you did something bad to Israel. How would you feel in that scenario? Of course, he'd be outraged. So the fact that, this is textbook dehumanization. They don't count. They're not people. They're not like you. They're inferior. Whatever's coming to them, they deserve it. And again, I just want to remind you guys here, I'm going to pull this up, just to remind you guys what we're talking about here. And these are outdated numbers, to be fair. There's been about 49,000 people killed in Gaza. 44,000 of them are civilians, including over 16,000 children and over 10,000 women. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about 90% of the population being displaced. 90%. 172 journalists killed. 523 healthcare professionals killed. Over 30 hospitals bombed. This is what we're talking about. Schools bombed, hospitals bombed, UN buildings bombed, UN workers being bombed. To look at that situation and then go on the rant that he just went on again, either he's just super duper colossal ignorant on the issue and he's talking out of his ass, and that would be the best case scenario for him, or he knows some of these things and he just doesn't care. So let's go through what he's saying. They have genocide built into Sharia law. Okay, how does that apply to the 16,000 children who were killed, or the 10,000 women who were killed, or the 90% civilians who were killed? How does Sharia law play into this in any way, shape, or form? There's 2.3 million people in Gaza. 30 to 40,000 of them are Hamas. And Israel's doing total collective punishment by their own admission. They did a total siege, cut off all food, fuel, water, electricity to 2.3 million people to go after allegedly 30,000 or 40,000 people. What does Sharia law have to do with anything? So if you live in a place where the government is bad and oppressive, you are guilty for their sins? Is that the mindset? That is his mindset that he's espousing right now. If you live under an oppressive regime that has a backwards ideology and bad ideas, you are, by extension, guilty. Even if that government is authoritarian and they hold on to power through illegal means, it doesn't matter. You're a civilian living under them, you're oppressed by them, but you're somehow just as guilty as whoever did the bad stuff, right? He says, quote, they're terrible people. Again, who's terrible people? The 16,000 children who were killed, the 10,000 women who were killed, the 90% civilians who were killed. Of the people who were killed, there's so many of them are just regular folks, civil service workers, the local butcher, the local merchant, right? Like people who they have different hobbies and tastes and interests, and this one plays soccer, and quote, they're terrible people. Again, who's they? Look at how broad and general he's being while talking about this in a situation where 90% civilians were killed. Quote, they'd be doing the same thing. So, okay, help me understand this one, because he says they'd be doing the same thing, implying that, well, the genocide would be bad if they were doing it to Israel, but somehow Israel doing it to them is not bad, not condemnable, doesn't deserve your scorn and your derision. Massively self-contradictory. They're bad because if they had all the power, they would be doing genocide. But Israel is doing a genocide, and you're giving it a total pass and acting like, hey, that's fine because they're bad people and they have it coming. Quote, they are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture. So understand something, guys. Let's use this logic and try to apply it to us. The U.S. government, in the wake of 9/11, they lied and claimed that Saddam Hussein was connected to al-Qaeda and was responsible for 9/11. We illegally invaded the country of Iraq, displaced millions of people, killed hundreds of thousands of people. And by this logic, you could say, hey, all Americans, civilian or not, are from an inferior culture, because this is the kind of culture that illegally invaded a country that didn't attack them, displaced millions, killed hundreds of thousands, did torture to cover it up, right? But hey, if you're a grandma that lives in Cleveland, or you're an eye doctor who lives in Tuscaloosa, or you're a kid at school in Dayton, Ohio, you're all guilty because you're all from America. So therefore, you're an inferior culture. I don't care what happens to you. This is logic that could be used, that could be flipped onto the US or any other country for that matter, and say, well, you're an inferior culture because look at what your government does in your name with your tax money, and you're not doing anything to stop it. So you got whatever's coming to you, right? It's so, the thinking is so sloppy. And then he just literally says, quote, I don't feel bad. I also love the casual invocation of Western values, as if that is supposed to definitionally be everything that's good, and that which is not Western values are bad. It's like, okay, can we point to things in quote unquote Western values that are good, right? Like, I don't know, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the civil rights movement, whatever, freedom of religion, like you name it, right? Yeah, we could talk to enlightened liberal values and say they're good, but these are the same countries and oftentimes the same groups of people that also engaged in slavery and engaged in Jim Crow and did Japanese internment and waged illegal and offensive wars against countries that didn't attack us. Why is it that Western values it gets credit for all of the good things, but all the bad things are put to the side, or they don't matter, or you don't acknowledge them. And that, well, we'll just say that's not part of Western values. That's an aberration, right? Because that's the idea. For them, any bad things, that defines who they are. For us, forget the bad things. It's only the good things, and that defines who we are. So in other words, in its simplest form, we are the good guys by definition. They are the bad guys by definition. And that's not really hyperbolic. This is basically what he's saying. We are good. They are bad, right? And by the way, also just mega ironic that giving Israel a total pass. Meanwhile, what is the government of Israel? What does that country represent? Okay, it is literally, definitionally, an ethno-state. That's what it is. It's an apartheid state. It's an ethno-state. It's a settler colonial outpost. It's expansionist. If you listen to top government officials, if you listen to the Ben-Gvir types and the Smotrich types, they openly use uber religious rhetoric and about how we're the enlightened people and they're the people of darkness and we need to slay Amalek, right? Like, which is in the Bible and is basically like kill all of them, men, women, children, their animals, etc. Like, they are overtly religious extremists and the most extreme kind who are engaging in the sort of violence in part backed up by their religion, and that somehow gets a total pass, and they're still like part of the enlightened Western values, right? How? How would that pass the test? How? There's no way, shape, or form that would pass the test. It's like when the U.S. says, oh, they're a liberal democracy and a beacon of human rights in the region. Really? They've broken 62 UN resolutions before fucking breakfast. What are we talking about here? Are you kidding me? I mean, like every other year, the UN passes a resolution that's like, hey, two-state solution along the 1967 borders. The UN helped create Israel. Now we want to help create a Palestine. And they go, no, we're good. We'll pass on that. Oh, tee-hee-hee. Did we take more land in the West Bank and steal it? Tee-hee-hee. Is that what we did? Tee-hee-hee. Did we steal Syrian territory, the Golan Heights, and claim it? Tee-hee-hee. Our bad. Oh, are we having conferences on resettling Gaza as we do a genocide in Gaza and try to ethnically cleanse the population? I guess we're the freedom-loving, enlightened, liberal, democratic types here, huh? Again, the thinking is so sloppy. You know what this reminds me of? This is like somebody who's heard a couple clips of Sam Harris or Bill Maher at their absolute worst moments, and then it's like just the unsophisticated, like, dumb guy interpretation of what they say. But he doesn't put enough of the window dressing on it, so it just comes across as absolutely psychotic and genocidal. Because it is that. So, I mean, it's just, look, I'm happy Hassan spoke to him. I'm happy he backpedaled a little bit, right? But, I don't know, it's one of those things, right, where it's like, to just be like, tee-hee-hee, did I do a genocide? Like, did I do genocide apologia? Oopsies. Like, I don't know. It just, there's not much you could say after that to really hammer home, like, no, I was just flat out completely 100% wrong, and I don't mean it, and I never should have said it, and it was horrific, and I now understand exactly why and how I was wrong. It's just a hard one to sort of shrug off, right? When you're looking at a situation, and I gave you the conservative numbers here. U.S. doctors who were in Gaza, 99 of them, they wrote the Gaza letters and said the horrors that they saw. And they say it's 118,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza. The Lancet, the medical journal, says direct and indirect war deaths, it's at least 186,000 people dead. Those are all individuals. Those are all people with stories, with lives, with dreams, with hopes, with aspirations. And he looks at that and he's just like, they're terrible people. They're inferior. It's just amazing. It really goes to show you people can rationalize anything. They really can. I mean, there's one of the doctors who's been doing a media tour telling everybody in explicit detail. Before I got to this conflict, and he's been in a lot of conflict zones, he said, I've never seen kids get shot in the heart and in the head so often. I've never held a child's brain in my hands before. Now it happens all the time. I see it all the time. And he brings that up, and it's like, what, are people just going to yawn and move on from that? Like, this is not Holocaust 2.0? Like, this is not the world's most obvious genocide happening right in front of our eyes? And the reaction is, look, a lot of people aren't paying attention, don't really care, and they default to beliefs like this. Like, look, they got to be the bad people. That's why the bad things are happening to them. And so they're terrible people. They're inferior. I don't feel bad. Something, Sharia law is horrible. So, like, all of these 90% civilians who were killed, they're like, they represent Sharia. And so whatever happens to them, happens to them. And it is what it is. Jesus, man. Jesus. Look, I'll say it again. If you don't know a lot about what's going on, okay. But then just shut the fuck up about it, right? I mean, it's that simple. If you don't know about what's going on, okay, then just don't talk about it, right? But if you're going to offer an opinion in the midst of a absolute horrific genocide, and your take is basically rah genocide, or hey, it's okay because they're bad. I don't know, man. And then the final point, I know this is the cheap point, but I got to bring it up. As this person says in the replies, quote, they come from an inferior culture, and then you see what his room looks like. I mean, the guy is like openly a slob, right? Like he's openly a slob. He's talked about how horrible his diet is and the stuff he puts in his body, and he drinks soda all day, every day, and he was having heart problems because of it out of nowhere. And it's like, you're not the one who can make this argument, bro. You can't make this argument. Wild. And then you get these, non-political streamers who become political, and then in so many instances, it's just they end up being super far right, super far right. And he literally brought up in this same rant, like the LGBTQ angle, like, oh, they treat gay people bad there. And it's like, does that mean you get to drone strike grandmas and toddlers? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, if I have a neighbor who's anti-gay marriage, can I take a Ruger 22 and shoot his family through the window? Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? This is such a bullshit argument that's deployed by Israel. Did you know it's not even legal to get gay married in Israel? And one of the main propaganda arguments they make to, like, people in the U.S. is, bro, we're pro-gay rights and they're anti-gay rights, bro. As if that makes it okay to carpet bomb kids with bunker busters, right? Like, what are we talking about? But it's points like this that just sort of stuck with a guy like this. And that's, honestly, it's a terrifying thought. It's a terrifying thought. It's like, how many people are being swayed by the dumbest, low IQ propaganda you've ever seen in your life? The answer is probably quite a few. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.